Hi, this is Brass Check. We're recording this on July 3rd. Busy day here in advance of Independence Day. The year is 2024. Hey, interesting story. The endless saga of Jeffrey Epstein, or Epstein, or whatever you're supposed to call him. Clearly an operative for Israel and also the CIA and whatever other nefarious forces are out there. This is the one thing that is not being portrayed in the news media. We just keep hearing about what a pervert he was, but yeah, that's pretty obvious. What's more distressing is that the U.S. and Israeli government made use of this guy knowing what he was doing and covered him up until it was time to get rid of him. Anyway, we are now going to read a really good article on a subject that, if you think that the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about the CIA and Israel being behind Jeffrey Epstein, uh, they really don't want to talk about J.P. Morgan being involved with Jeffrey Epstein. So we're going to read from a great publication that gets into that, and we're going to do that right now. If I find the right button, where is it? There it is. Do I hit the right thing? Da, da, da. Okay. Is this showing? Yes, I did it. Success. Okay. Um, all right. I'm just going to read it to you. By the way, the publication is Wall Street on Parade, wallstreetonparade.com. They will give you a free subscription. These folks do really good work. They are former Wall Streeters who really know the scene. They know where all the bodies are buried, and they get into some really, really deep stuff. Um, so here we go. Grand jury transcript in Jeffrey Epstein case is released, raising questions about Epstein's darkest secrets being protected in J.P. Morgan cases. Cases, multiple. On Monday, the transcript of the July 19th, 2006 grand jury. That's nearly 20 years ago. They have, when people say, oh, no, you can't keep a secret. There's no such thing as a government conspiracy. They'd never be able to. They kept this one thing secret for nearly 20 years. And it would have been secret forever if it hadn't been for a decent judge. Let me name him. Is he there? Is he named? Um, I'll look and see if he's named. But there are some decent judges. And this judge looked at this transcript that was supposedly sealed and said, oh no, this is not going to be sealed. God bless him or her. I'm not sure who it was. We will see. I will look it up in the course of this call to make sure that this judge gets credit. Um, anyway, so the transcripts involving his sexual assaults. I'm glad they meant, it's violence. It's violence against children. That's what this guy was engaged in, with the help of J.P. Morgan, with the help of Palm Beach County, or excuse me, the state attorney uh, and the federal government, and probably the CIA. They've done a good job of not being identified with the Israeli government. They've done a very good job of not being identified. So right now it's the Department of Justice, uh, but even no one's even talking about them. Is anybody looking at the Department of Justice and saying, "What the hell did you do? You intervened in this case and let this guy walk? Are you serious?" But that's what they do. Anyway, so the Palm Beach newspaper had sued the court for the release of these transcripts. The Palm Beach Post, wow, that's a good newspaper. I didn't know they existed anymore. The Palm Beach Post, incredible. Um, can you imagine the heat that they took? I want to see. I'm gonna do a little research. Well, I always like to do research on the fly. Let's take a look. Who owns it? My God, Gannett owns it. This is a chain newspaper. That's a shocker. Okay. All right. Da, 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 da. They wanted to shine more light on how Florida State Attorney Barry Kreischer, whatever, had ignored a powder keg of evidence against Epstein that had been developed by the Palm Beach police. So here we have a police force actually doing his job. Another shocker. They tried. They did their best. And what did Barry Krischer, Krischer, do? He let this piece of human garbage walk. Under pressure from Epstein's attorneys. Bullshit. What kind of pressure can an attorney put on a state attorney? Give me a break. Give me a break. All these guys had to do was ask for it, and they were given it. All right, Florida legislation signed into law by Governor Ron DeSantis. Credit where credit's due. He had to go to the legislature, and credit to the legislature of Florida for saying, you know what, we're going to pass a law that you can't keep the grand jury transcripts on this case secret. God bless all these people. We have some good people out there working at this. So let's get this clear. So I'm going to sort of paraphrasing this. He assaulted dozens, 12, multiples of 12 underage schoolgirls. It was systematic. And so what did Krischer and the U.S. Department of Justice? Now, do we know the person at the U.S. Department of Justice who signed off on this? Do we have that miscreant's name? Who was president then? Looks like Obama. I don't know. No, it looks like with Bush. Bush. So this was a Bush White House operation, and he had to serve his 13 months in jail. Of course, wasn't the normal jail. He was usually I don't mean to laugh, but he was in a work release program, and he was driven to an office each day by his limo driver. All right, so after the work release program, and he was committing crimes too, by the way, during his incarceration. Uh, After this program, he was supposed to spend a year under house arrest. Excuse me, but he violated his probation on a daily basis. There's 11 pages of different violations. One police officer documented 66 different days that he violated his probation. He would go to New York. I mean, God help a normal person that even remotely violates their probation. You know, maybe once or twice you'll get to slide. After that, you're in front of the judge, and you know the judge can do anything to you at that point. He didn't tell anybody. He just did whatever he wanted. Every time I brought the probation office a case, they kept telling me the same thing. What would you like us to do? This reminds me, I don't know if you know the book Chaos. It's about Charles Manson. Well, Charles Manson was under probation in California. And they even flew a special probation officer from the state, I think, of Indiana, also home of Jim Jones and other people, to supervise him. And Charles Manson was given the lightest probation. I think he was on parole, I think. Not even parole is like 100 times worse. You look the wrong way and you're going back to jail that day. Full sentence, you know. But not this special parole officer. He gave Charles Manson every liberty imaginable, including Charles Manson claimed that he was given a job in Mexico and he had to leave the country. Good luck trying that in the real world. But anyway, let's go back. This good police officer said when he went to the probation office, they said, what do you want us to do about it? Well, it's very easy. The judge, you bring it to the judge looks at it, calls him in and says, guess what? You're going to real jail. But that didn't happen for Jeffrey Epstein. All right. So there were videotape testimonies of the victims, multitude of witnesses. And the U.S. Department of Justice under what was his name? Barry Obama, allowed this guy to run free. He did this for another decade until his arrest. Finally, Actually 2 years ago, almost to the day, 3 years ago, excuse me, 5 years ago. Boy, this is time flies, huh? This was 5 years ago. He quote hung himself in jail. All right, just a little more than a month after his arrest. Of course, it was a suicide. The Justice Department was finally shaken into taking action by reporter Julie Brown. We had a video of her not long ago. In fact, we might run that again. Yeah, I think it's time to run that video again. Let me make a note. Again, okay. Um, and so how did the state attorney portray these girls? They're girls. You're under 16, you know, 18, you're a girl, you know. And the attorney, the state attorney, not the defense attorney, the state attorney, the prosecuting attorney portrayed these girls as prostitutes. Okay, so you take a 14 or 12. We don't know the extent and depth. We know one case where his buddy over there in Paris flew two 12-year-olds over to him. So I assume he did the same thing in the United States. So you take some, disadvantaged, poorly supervised 12-year-old girl into your mansion, drug her and rape her, and she's a prostitute. This is what the state attorney was presenting in the case. The state attorney was doing this. What's his name again? Krischer? Who is this guy? Let me look at him up. Yeah, this guy. Really interesting to see what his deal is. All right. Well, we got his name. His name is mentioned a lot, um, but you never hear anything about his background. Uh, well, let's see. Here's his mug. He's a member. Oh, he's an honoree. There's something called the Selig Golden Award. Don't know what that is, but he got an award for his great work. So he was born in Brooklyn. He moved to Palm Beach County, blah, blah, blah. Went to Brooklyn College, got his law degree. He taught at the police academy, received all kinds of awards. This is a great guy. He is the past chairman of the Florida Bar of Criminal Law. The past chairman of the Florida Bar Criminal. In other words, of all the criminal attorneys in Florida, he was the chairman for the state of Florida. He's a member of the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, blah, blah, blah. He's been married to his wife for 43 years. He's got two sons, and he's got grandchildren. He retired from public office, and now he's volunteering 2 days a week at the Palm Beach Sheriff's. What? This is psychotic. Listen to this. Most recently, elected to the board of the Children's Home Society, he remains active in child welfare issues through his work with the Palm Beach County Alliance, as well as the Department of Children and Families. And here are the other winners of the Selig Golden Award. Very interesting. Very interesting. When did he get his award? 2010. After, take note, after he brought these girls in, these children in, after they were drugged and raped, and after he had them he called them prostitutes in open court, well, actually in a grand jury, as the prosecutor, 2 years later, and let this agent of the CIA in Israel off the hook, 2 years after that, he was given an award for being such a great attorney. Oh boy, man. Wow, wow, wow. Palm Beach Post has written about him. He was the Palm Beach County State Attorney for the past 12 years. Oh, and here's a conversation with him. Carried out in 2004. Okay, what is this? Don't you love this crap? No, I don't want it, and I don't want this either. Oh, they won't let me go in. Okay. Well, anyway, if you go to thesunsentinel.com and you look it up, a 2004 interview with this piece of garbage. Let me see if I can do a quick screenshot of it. Ah, I'm going to try one more time. He prosecutes juveniles and he prosecutes Rush Limbaugh, but he somehow couldn't get around to prosecuting a guy who systematically over decades drugged, raped, and physically assaulted young children. In fact, he ran cover for that guy, and he was rewarded with the whatever that award was. All right, let's get back to these sidebars are important, aren't they? Anybody else talking about this? You've seen a million stories about all this, and nobody talks about this guy, uh, um, Kirscher, Krischer, and how he's been rewarded for what he did. All right, so again, so just to repeat, Krischer went on and called these girls prostitutes, and then thank God for Julie Brown and the Miami Herald. Um, that became a big story, and it became impossible. You know, take away Julie Brown, and none of this would have ever been reported. He would, Krischer and Epstein, who were joined at the hip somehow, would have gotten away with this. He would still be doing what he's doing. So thanks to Julie Brown. Mainstream media, blah, blah, blah. Okay, additional bombshells going unnoticed, according to the detective. The pedophile owned not five, he had six homes. Testified in the grand that in addition to his Palm Beach, he owned homes in New York City, New Mexico, St. Thomas, Paris, and England. Oh, this is interesting. England, the home of pedophilia central. And I hate that word pedophilia. It's the assault of on children. It's violence against children. I mean, and sexual abuse, but it's violence against children. Let's call it what it is. The first five names have been widely reported, but I love Wall Street on Parade. Oh my God. So they're kind of like me, but they do it with a laser focus on Wall Street. They're pointing out in this article, which just came out on July 3rd, that nobody has reported his sixth home, the one he has in England. Oh, remember Prince Edward? Yeah, they're mentioning Prince Edward. Okay. Oh boy, interesting, interesting. Has centered Wall Street's focused on his relationship with J.P. Morgan. They now understand this. J.P. Morgan provided the money to Epstein to pay off his victims and silence them. Now, don't we have a former president who's been indicted, what, 80,000 felony charges for record tampering, or I don't know, filing a false business record, whatever, because he gave money to some gold digging hooker to keep her quiet. But here we have J.P. Morgan giving cash. J.P. Morgan giving cash to Jeffrey Epstein so he could pay off the victims of his abuse. By the way, they have a big office in London, as the Wall Street on Parade points out. And they point out, despite the fact that J.P. Morgan has a rap sheet that rivals that of an organized crime family, the U.S. Department of Justice has yet to bring charges against the bank for aiding and abetting Jeffrey Epstein. How do you like that? And the Attorney General in the U.S. Virgin Islands has gotten a ton of documentation that shows J.P. Morgan and Jeffrey Epstein were joined at the hip. And on it goes. Let's see. JP Morgan actively participated. This is what the Attorney General, this is the Attorney General of the U.S. Virgin Islands. This is not some guy with an internet channel, a YouTube channel. This is not a podcaster. This is the Attorney General of the U.S. Virgin Islands. Says that JP Morgan actively participated in Epstein's sex trafficking. And again, I think sex trafficking understates what was going on here. He wasn't hiring a bunch of adults to provide adult services to adults. He was basically, temporarily kidnapping, drugging, and raping children on a systematic basis. All right, what else do we have here? There is no, here's what the Attorney General of the U.S. Virgin Islands says. There is no genuine dispute that JP Morgan actively participated in Epstein's sex trafficking venture from 2006 until 2019 when it came to an end. The bank allowed Epstein to use its accounts to send dozens of payments to the then known. JP Morgan knew this guy had been busted, knew who his associates were, and continued to provide him with banking services. Do you know that my banking services were turned off by Apple Savings Bank? They just arbitrarily sent me a letter, and said, we're no longer going to provide you with services. Now, they've been doing this to lots of people, by the way. But JP Morgan, they were the paymaster. Let's understand this. JP Morgan were the paymasters knowingly for Jeffrey Epstein's child abuse ring. I don't call it a sex trafficking ring, child abuse ring. She's sex trafficking. Again, it makes you think, well, these are adult women and this is what they choose to do. And some people want to buy these services and everyone's getting paid. No, this was a child abuse network. All right. How much cash? And we're talking about cash withdrawals. We're not talking about like wires or bank checks or automatic transfer. We're talking about cash. How much cash did JP Morgan pony up for Epstein to carry out his operations? Cash, guys. Excuse me. Getting all riled up here. $5 million in cash. Just so you understand, guys, this stuff, okay? That's 1,000. Let's see. How many do you have to have? $1,100 bills is 100,000. Wow. Okay, just so you picture that. I happen to have one of these. That's 50,000 of these. That's a stack, right? That bank. Now you go into your own bank and try to pull out $5,000. See what happens to you. Excuse me. And they gave him $5 million in cash. All right, let's get to the details. U.S. Virgin Islands attorney cites internal emails at JP Morgan. Right, this is not like, well, we think that went on. We've heard allegation. No, they've got JP Morgan's own emails. Employees at the bank were aware of Epstein's cash withdrawals made in the amounts of $40,000 to $80,000 several times per month. And they were aware that he paid his victims in cash. You hearing this anywhere else? No, you're hearing, oh, the Florida State Attorney General was kind of mean. Well, he was. He should be disbarred and he should be in jail himself. But that'll never happen. So that part of it is true. But look at the tip of the eye. That's the tip of the iceberg, right? The real story here is JP Morgan. And only one news outlet, WallStreetOnParade.com, God bless them, is telling you this. This is great stuff, huh? And then, of course, the JP Morgan's attorneys, engaged in a scorched earth campaign to humiliate the U.S. Virgin Islands in the media over its ties to Epstein. The case was settled and the bank paid. right? So there were all these claims against Jeffrey Epstein and his bank and his bank that knowingly supported him. I mean, wow, man, this is how the world works. You make a mistake and they'll put handcuffs on you. Ask me how I know. This guy is carrying on a criminal enterprise, brutalizing children in broad daylight. His bank knows it, and they're giving him bundles of cash. You know, $5 million is a lot, but even 40,000, that's a lot of cash, right? Jeffrey Morgan, blah, 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 was alleged class action, JP Morgan, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, the lawyers for JP Morgan whined and moaned, but then they came up with 75 million to settle the claims that the U.S. Virgin Islands had against JP Morgan. Why wasn't that a headline? Why isn't Jamie Dimon, that smug moron, being called out and forced to answer for what JP Morgan did? Good Lord. Okay. This goes on and on and on. Oh, they were involved in all kinds of stuff. Da, 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 da. According to witness testimony, fulfilling, I mean, this is sickening to read. According to witness testimony. So how did Epstein come up with all these mansions and all this money and the jets and the helicopters and the private island? According to witness testimony, fulfilling the sexual fantasies of powerful men in Epstein's network was how he obtained 6 opulent homes and hundreds of millions of dollars in wealth. Well, I don't know who these, I mean, of course, the people, the customers have still been protected. This has nothing to do with sexual fantasy. These are sick individuals who all belong in prison forever. But we don't even know their names. It's kind of hard to charge somebody if you don't know their name. Anyway, there's also the unseemly reality that the federal district court judge, Jed Rakoff, Rakoff, let's look him up, who presided over the JP Morgan case in Manhattan, um, has allowed thousands of documents, including the bulk of the sworn deposition. So this little bit that just came out, tip of the iceberg. And we've got this judge in New York, and let's look him up. Oh, he's a former. Yeah, they're smart. They're smart. He's out. Oh no, he still is in. What is he? District judge of the. He's 80 years old. Bill Clinton appointed him. He's a scumbag. Um, let's see. Oh, has he written books? Oh, this is wild. He's written a book on the RICO. This is an expert on criminal enterprises, right? And he's letting J.P. Morgan skate on one of the most appalling criminal enterprises of our era. What a piece of garbage. All right, here's the federal. He's received a great deal of press. He's a rogue judge, an activist, a harsh taskmaster. Okay, this is a puff piece about him. He was born in Philadelphia, Swarthmore, English, grad, went to Oxford, Harvard, busy schedule, books, walls is a time. Okay, this is a puff piece. Don't need to hear this nonsense. Let's see the short version of the university. Oh, he is a lecturer at the University of Virginia School of Law. Now, you have these kids and interrupt other people's speeches and carry out protests and so on. Is this guy being protested? I doubt it. He was a clerk for the late Judge Abraham Friedman, served as a U.S. attorney. He was the he for 2 years he was the chief business and securities fraud prosecutor for the Southern District. Now that's the major league of Wall Street fraud cases. Like that's it. That's the not only is it the top of the mountain, it's the mountain. There is no other. I mean, there may be other courts that deal in that, but they're so inconsequential they don't matter. So this guy was the head of all business and securities fraud prosecutions for the federal government in the Southern District. And then before going to the bench, he was a litigation partner at two large law firms. They don't mention them. He served on a bunch of this, a bunch of that. He's assisted the U.S. government in training judges. Well, great, just what we need. A crook like this. Fortune magazine. All right. Fortune magazine in 2014 listed him as one of the world's 50th greatest leaders. What the hell? Are you kidding me? Yeah, let's look this up here. All right. All right, here we go. 2014, Pope Francis. All right. Yeah, I gotta subscribe to this crap. I'm not going to. But anyway, you can see, I don't want notifications from you. I don't want anything else from you. Well, Pope Francis. I can't see the other ones. Oh, too bad. But this is their top 50. And the judge, just so you understand this, the judge in New York who has allowed the vast majority of depositions under oath related to the Epstein case, which involves J.P. Morgan, he is the reason, this one guy is the reason we don't know who the perpetrators were. I mean, I'm not going to say just a pimp, but basically Jeffrey Epstein was just a pimp, right? We don't know who the people were that came to him to get these services. They were rich, guaranteed. They were powerful, guaranteed. They paid him a lot of money, guaranteed. We don't know who they are, and we can thank this piece of garbage judge for that. All right. There we are. There's so much more to say about this, but all praise to wallstreetonparade.com. You can get a daily subscription for free, and you can find out. So a lot of it's technical stuff, but it shows you just how epically corrupt. But the bottom line, J.P. Morgan knew what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. J.P. Morgan facilitated what he was doing. In any normal world, this would be a criminal case against J.P. Morgan and against the individual bankers that specifically worked the Epstein case, and made the money available and made the banking services available, made the cash available. They'd all be in court and probably going to jail for a long, 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 long time. But we don't even know their names, thanks to this judge that I just pointed out. And thanks to the settlement, U.S. Virgin Islands figured, hey, we can get $75 million, let J.P. Morgan off the hook. So for $75 million, J.P. Morgan has bought silence on their participation, their partnership with Epstein in this child abuse network. I mean, wow, man, wow. And if it weren't for Wall Street on Parade, you wouldn't know any of this. I wouldn't know any of this. And, I have to say, brass check too. You're not seeing this on Joe Rogan or any of these other places. Anyway, this has been Brass Check. And I was going to say, I hope you enjoyed this, but what is there to enjoy about it? But it's good to know. It's good to know. So we don't take anything these people ever say or do seriously. All right. How do I log out of this thing? Oh my God, here we go. All right. Have a great holiday.
Brass Check TV, free to you, not free to us. We've got a server bill, we've got an email software bill, we've got a tech helper bill, and that happens every month. So to everybody that is supporting us financially, that's paying for their subscription in one way or another, we really appreciate it. If you're not, consider doing so. Everybody's got money for the newspaper and the cable bill and all that. Do you have money for media that's actually serving you? That's really the issue here. And when you help us, it allows us to get this information out to the world. So thanks to all our supporters, and if you're not a supporter already, please consider becoming one.